Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Ignite with Sandy on the Celestia platform. So, for those of you who are watching for the first time, what is Celestia? Celestia is a platform of work life balance for women. So, we bring different guests from different parts of the world, different walks of life, sharing important information that can make a positive change in your life. And over the year, I have had some really interesting women from the field of law, from health and wellness, from marketing, from investment and finance. And of course, now I have a very interesting lady that I met some time ago and we reconnected recently. Now, this is a lady who is very passionate about the environment. She's very passionate about energies. She's very passionate about always wanting to do something to remain alert, to remain healthy. And I thought to myself, as we come to the end of 2023, this would be a wonderful interview to share with you because she has so much to talk about. And recently, with this COP28 that's just been concluded in Dubai, there are a lot of things about the environment, about how we should be leading our lives, what we should be doing, because governments do a lot, right? But what do we, as the end consumer, do? How can we be more responsible? Those are some of the things that she's going to be talking about. And of course, as you know, I never give away more than that. And I always get my wonderful guests to introduce themselves. So I'm going to bring on my lovely guest for today. And she is going to introduce herself. So, welcome, my dear, to Ignite with Sandy. And please tell us a little bit about what you do.
Good evening, good morning to whoever's watching around the world. My name is Sandhya Prakash. I have lived in the Middle East, in Saudi and Dubai for almost 3 decades, and back here in India. I'm talking to you from Bangalore. Uh, I graduated from BITS Pilani, Premier Engineering College in India, and have been an entrepreneur, uh, mostly forced into this profession of entrepreneurship due to my life in Saudi. Launched almost 8 companies in the Middle East. And right now, I'm a consultant in growth and scaling. A lot of hobbies in life, from singing to being a TEDx speaker. But recently, I authored a book. So we'll have loads to discuss with Sandy. Sandy's so happy to be on the show with you. I think we share first names. I'm called Sandy too.
Yes, I know there are a lot of connections, that other people may not be aware of. So, something, one of the things that has been happening a lot over here, and I think some time ago you did talk about it. So, I would love for you to share information. It's about all things electronics. So, it's the phone, the laptop, the television, and the iPads, and you name it. When you walk into a store today, you are absolutely flummoxed by the variety of electronic goods that are on offer. And then what happens is these, I mean, I'm old school, so I'm very happy with my phone. But then I am forced to look at buying something else because after a year or something, year even is too long, it's outdated. Data is not being stored, blah, 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 buy this, do this. So we end up with dozens of phones in the house, dozens of electronic screens and wires and a whole lot of things. And then we decide, oh, let's do some spring cleaning and get rid of this. And that's where the problem, I think, is. So, can you please explain to our audience, number one, what happens when we don't do this? What happens on the environment? So, I'll just leave you to walk us through all of this, how to get rid of it.
Thank you for that first question that you pointed, which is so vital and important in the background of COP28, which recently concluded in Dubai. So let me take a step back, Sandy, and the viewers. Let's just take a step back and think of the word resource, right? Everything in the planet that we have today is limited in nature, and some resources are unlimited. And the word resource from itself means we are consuming something, we are taking. If we don't give it back in a certain form into nature, then we are only consuming. So it's a very, very simple math, right? So suppose I come to your house and I bring a gift for you, and then I eat food, and then I pay money if it is a restaurant. Okay, there is a transaction. But with planet Earth, anything we take out from there, we need to ensure in the entire circular form of its lifetime, from wherever it comes, we recycle it, reuse it. And this was the nature for from our grandmothers' times, and we used to do it very well till we exploded in population. Coming specifically today to the electronics recycling or electronics usage, it is, I don't want to give you all the data. You can go Google and see how many of us today are equipped with electronic items. It starts with this laptop I'm sitting on. It starts with the phone, which every single person is holding in their hand and changing it almost every 6 months. There's huge number of trace metals that go into making a telephone, right? Or a laptop. The motherboard has so many metals that are there. Now, what happens to each one of this when we change and we throw away or give away? Because the memory is short of the type of usage that we do. Our habits at an individual level in 2024, let's do something about it. Let us take first a stock before this year ends of the total number of electronic items, be it TV, music system, we have various other electronic items in the house. Let's make a list. Okay, I'm getting into action. A lot of people give you the information on what is out there. But as an individual, go back and make a list. Just like we do spring cleaning, we do Thanksgiving, and so on, various celebrations. Let this be a celebration of change, of consciousness, and of us taking responsibility for the planet. Yeah. So make a list of every single electronic item in the house. So that's a beginning, right? Then in front of that, put the owner. Suppose there are 4 telephones with person A in the house. Person B has 2. Person C has 1 phone. Put the name of the owners of the house and spend some time in speaking together as a family about what we need for next year, and do the budgeting exercise. Let it not be an impulsive purchase that we do next year. What happens with all this trash if it is kept in the house, or even if it is just thrown out, or even if it is recycled? There are various companies that are today available that deal in scrap. They either throw it into the landfills or take all the important elements and they will recycle that, and so on. Everything is possible. So once you make a list and once you decide how much you're going to spend on next year in the same electronics, find out in your town who is dealing in electronics recycling. Many of the companies, large brands, are also and also the retailers are receiving electronic items back in their store. Speak to them and see if they have a recycling plan. It is so vital for us not to throw it into the environment and junk it. So I would say this simple process done by a family, since Sandy said we are talking about year end, right? Coming, this is an action plan for you from Mother Earth.
Wonderful, my dear. I think it's a wake up call for us to see what do we really need. Can we perhaps use our phone for another 6 months? Is it really necessary to remain relevant? Also, sometimes what happens is we buy things because they're cheap. I'll need this phone,
True.
but that phone, for example, you take a generic brand and you take a well-known brand. Obviously, the well-known brand is going to cost perhaps three times as much, but it also lasts three times longer. So
True.
when we are investing our money in an object that is going to be useful to us, which is required, I think we should weigh the pros and cons, because we could be changing something every 6 months or actually keeping it for a year. So, from a financial perspective, me and my finance, that's also
Right.
important. But now, Sandhya, please share with us what happens when these electronic items land up in a landfill because they have not been disposed of in the correct manner. What happens at that stage with all the various components?
So I will deal with one for this particular talk. There is plastic, there is metal, and there is a lot of other wires that you see, which again is plastic and metals. First of all, the plastic. All the items that, many of the countries now have ban on plastic itself, right? So what happens to plastic is over a period of 300 to 1000 years, depending on the type of plastic it is. One, it remains in the environment. Then even when it breaks down into microplastics. Now these microplastics in the sand or in the water, be it groundwater or the river or the ocean, what happens is they coagulate in one particular place and make plastic soup. It becomes like a plastic soup because of the currents of the ocean, finally. And these plastic soups can be seen even from the satellites images. Okay. And the phytoplanktons and the plants which are there under the ocean, they start consuming it. Little fish consume it. And then the bigger fish eat the smaller fish. And this becomes an endless loop of the microplastics reaching our food source. And that's how we have started to face huge amount of diseases in our bodies without even knowing about it, by consuming plastics and these microplastics. So that is one cycle that is happening, and people are very well aware. I think about 10, 12 years ago, when we started the anti plastic campaign, I think it's almost 20 years, sorry, 2 decades, yeah, in Dubai, we were just finding these things. Today, it is evident, people are aware, and we are doing things about it. There are a lot of youngsters who are coming up with very interesting solutions to pick out the plastics that are there. The metal, the gold, the various other trace elements that go into electronics, again, they'll stay there forever. And these metals are not available, endlessly on the planet. So there are two parts to what I'd like to you to think. You can be an environmentalist, you can be a conservationist. I think it is time that we are more focused on conserving resources. Environmentalists think from human perspective, what is good for us humans. But now we have to think about all the animals, the plants, the food that we are eating, and whatever as human beings we are consuming. Yeah. So the plastic cycle I told you, and also about the elements that are there as metals and other trace elements, they just remain there and it's just waste. You may have also heard of cars, right? Like you'll see all the wasted cars. There are many innovations today coming up with startups on how we can reuse these items. So if you have any such items, please do connect with people like us, come up with ideas to actually reuse it. So recycle, reuse is absolutely vital. And let's do it joyfully. I'm not trying to scare you into something, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're saying is that we need to be more conscious of what is happening around us, because it's not like, oh, they had a conversation there and this is there. Oh, but how does it affect me? Actually, it does, because when you were talking about, how it affects the groundwater, the plants, the animals, we're all part of that life cycle. And when something is not okay, it affects every single aspect. So if you
Absolutely.
remember the time when we were growing up, we never needed things like multivitamins, we never needed things like supplements. Our food was so wonderful.
Right.
And now the food is far more expensive, but we are having to add stuff to it, to make it nutritious. So I think there's a lot of uh, stuff that we are doing knowingly and unknowingly, which is taking us to a very dangerous place, I would say, because it's not only about us. You and I, maybe, at least since I'm older than you, we may not be around for a long time, but what about the future generations? I think we need to be a little more responsible. So, coming now to the next part, that is going back to the ancient systems of uh, being healthy, being active, your joints being okay, so that we can be more contributing people to society. We are not a burden on other people. We are not becoming a financial drain on ourselves. So, you and I are both very much into that. So tell me, what have you been doing and what have you discovered recently about how to keep fit, how to do things? And what is the system that you are now practicing, and how old is it?
Sure. So there are, I'll again take a step back, and I think my awareness started when I started delving deep into vegetarianism, veganism, raw food in 2007 from establishing something in Dubai called Me Veg, right? So we have met a lot of experts who are experimenting. You become an expert when you experiment, right? So experimenting with foods is one area. The second is the mind. So a lot of experiments were done with calming down, being peaceful, meditation, yoga, stretching, even at a age when the body probably apparently doesn't need it. But as we age, for sure, movement is the key. Movement, every movement is key. And the amount of energy sources that we have, like sleep, like food, like the air that we breathe, if we do it the right way, and of course, being energetic and happy and smiling, meeting people, socializing, everything is a complete package. Just like we spoke 2 minutes ago about an ecosystem where we are all interdependent with animals, with birds, with the water. Even within our body, all our parts of the body, our consciousness, are, there are at least three layers which are very evident: the physical, emotional, and mental well-being, with the mind body complex. So studying that on a regular basis, what better equipment do you have than yourself? Experiment with yourself. So, in terms of the things that I have been trying out in the last couple of years, when I was young, I used to be 100-meter, 200-meter dash runner, and used to take part in a lot of sport, badminton, table tennis, and so on. As we came into Saudi Arabia, when I lived there, we had fantastic aerobics teachers. Then there is dance, right? I don't have two left feet, but I can sing, and the body is in rhythm. I never learned to dance as such, but it is good to dance, move your body to music and rhythm. But of late, what I recently discovered just by chance on an Instagram post was something called Karla Kattai. Karla Kattai um, starts with May Padam, which is the preparation to coming to Karla Kattai. Karla Kattai was from the Chola kingdoms over 2,500, 3,000 year old technique. I would say it's type of a martial art, but it's from the Tamil Nadu region, and it was almost lost to the world. And there are a couple of instructors who actually brought that out. And I said, okay, let me, experiment with something new. And there's a exercise called May Padam, which has 1,500 exercises of stretching, and especially the upper body. Yeah, the upper body, and the waist and the legs. So it's a strengthening exercise. And I will try and just remove my earphones for a bit, Sandy, and show you how the karlas look. So very recently, I graduated after finishing the May Padam for almost 6, 8, 7 months into karlas. So the karla looks something like this. Yeah, this is the club. Okay, this is, if you can see, this is a club, and then you hold it this way. And so the gripping part is also key. And if you can see this, you can, it is heavy. Yeah, it's 1 kg, 2 kg, 3 kg. So you can actually do this. And I've just started about 2 weeks ago, and there is swinging. So let me just stand up and show you a bit on the karlas like this. Yeah. So when you hold it this way, the 2 kg, 3 kg karlas really strengthen the hand, the muscles. And I think, along with strength and movement, if we see, then we can know how not to age. I'm hugely inspired by Sandy herself, right? So Sandy does so much with her body to keep it going. It is not as if we don't have knee pains. This is not that we don't have days when we are down. But how do you make the body move in those days? Take rest. We're not saying every day keep running, but extremely important to try new things, because your body is constantly changing.
Quite
So
true, my dear. Quite true. And congratulations on so graduating from the first part to the next. I know
yes,
it takes, yeah. I think one of the most important things that you and I are aware of, and I think a lot more women should be aware of, is like we always make excuses about time. We
right.
always make excuses about being tired, not in the mood. We'll do it another day, postponing, but yet we find the time to do many other things. That's sort of where we are not required to do something actively. We are in a passive mode. Now, what you're talking about and what we practice is being active, active with yourself. And sometimes, yes, the body is tired and the energy levels may be a little low. But I personally believe, and I'm sure you will agree, when you push yourself and say no, this is something I'm going to do, because it's a discipline.
Right.
And when you say, all right, I'm going to pick this up, and doesn't matter if I'm feeling tired, but once you start doing that, you'll suddenly realize that your energy levels have gone up. It's not like, oh, this drained me of
It
energy. It's right the
totally,
opposite, right?
totally. Yeah. It is a complete chemical factory at work inside. So the chemicals are changing every 10 years, every 5 years within our body. And the age that we are reaching now, it is so important to have this chemical factory, understand what is happening with us, and augment it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have certain supplements because it's needed. So I want to share one example with you, right? So for almost 3 decades, we were in the Middle East, and the Middle East has a lot of sun, right? So the body was receiving a lot of sunlight. When we were there was a lot of heat naturally around. And then we had enough of it. So we moved to Bangalore, which is a very cold place, but I miss the sun now. So the body's mechanics has changed completely. The way I react to the same exercises that I was doing at the times of the day that we were doing is different. If you can imagine photosynthesis and plants, right? So all our environment has the same effect on us. And if you really, really are conscious and eager to learn how your body is kind of reacting to that, it's so beneficial. Yeah. So don't listen to anybody and everybody. Listen to your body at least. So that's
I
what I
think,
want to leave you
yeah,
with.
and very true, Sandhya, because most of us are shut off. We are completely shut off, and we are so used to being told what to do. So whether it's a video, whether it's an audio, or whether it's on Instagram or whatever, everybody is telling us what to do. Okay, and
True.
then we are thinking, wow, I'll look like this, I'll feel like this, and we're so confused because there's so much out there. But I have to say this, I believe in the ancient systems because they had it down to a T. And whatever we are doing now, many of the various programs that are being run, they're all being adapted from various ancient systems. Because in those days, there was no technology, there was no science as such, there was no discoveries being made. So, one, if you had to be healthy, if you had to be strong, if you had to have good muscles, if you had good coordination, it all was what are you doing with yourself?
Right, and
Because
that time we were doing a lot of things as well. Now we don't do as much. We have help. We don't cook as much. We have Swiggy and all these guys delivering stuff to us. So our workload, we are not working in the fields, right? Doing what we do. We don't ride horses and making our body move. So there's all the more reason that we need to keep doing something. Yes,
quite true.
just like you do.
Yeah, yeah, and I do it more because I would like to remain active. I would like to remain without pain. I would
Yeah.
like to remain not having to adjust because I can't do this anymore. So there are a lot of things that I
Yeah,
feel are
dependency.
important.
We want to remain independent, right? As much
Yes,
as possible. Dependency
absolutely.
is a pain for others more than us. So,
Exactly.
as
And I would
far
never
as
like to
possible,
be in that, never like to be in that position where I have to depend on somebody and then I become a burden. No,
right?
not happening. Anyway, talking about, you stayed a long time here and also in Saudi, where you sort of launched a lot of different companies. So you, I believe, were in Saudi a couple of years ago before I think you came to Dubai. And so you experienced life in Saudi, which many people are not aware of because they hear things because they haven't lived there. But you lived there and you were very happy there. You felt very fulfilled there. And that, I think, prompted you to chronicle all of that. So tell us about this book that you've written and why did you write it?
So, thank you for bringing that on. This is 2023. Uh, these stories of Saudi Arabia, the 11 years that we spent there immediately after I got married. My husband was living there for a couple of years, and we thought we'll live for a couple of years and then we'll move. And that turned out to be 11 years. Okay. Saudi in the 90s was a tough place for not only the men but also the women. Okay, mainly the women. Women couldn't drive. Women had to dress up in black clothes. We were not allowed to work in normal offices. You never found women in the workplace. Women were not there in sport. The restrictions go a long list. Now, in 2018, the country transformed itself with just one instruction, and the culture of the place was ready, the people were ready, and today the country has transformed. We see people transforming. As a self-healing instructor, I have seen over 400, 500 people transform themselves, but a country transforming itself, for the first time I have seen it from within and without. So I felt that I needed to chronicle what the context, the magnitude of the shift that this country has seen from the 80s and 90s to today needed to be documented. So I wrote this book called Shifting Sands of Saudi. Let me show that to your listeners, Sandy. So Shifting Sands of Saudi is
Bring
a,
the book a little in front, yeah, little more. It should
okay,
let it cover your face. Let it cover your face. Okay, I think it's a little bit what's it called?
blurry.
Blurred. Yes, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's it. Just hold it there. So for anybody watching, that's the name of the book. Okay, now you can continue.
So it is an expats account from the eyes. We have seen a lot of people write books about Saudi women, how, very, very scary accounts and so on. But this is about 60% is my stories, our stories. We had a fantastic time with friends who bonded together over fear of the mutawas. These were stories we were scared to say to people at that time, whether we lived in the Middle East or anywhere else in the world. But today, now that the country has transformed, it's time to tell those stories. And it is a fiction, because there's about 10 to 15% of fiction in that. I'm getting very good reviews about it. Please, if you want to read it from the perspective of the women. There are no insurmountable challenges and tasks for any of us today. The barriers are very few in whatever we want to do. And this particular book, I've highlighted it in 20 short stories. You can pick up the stories anywhere. It doesn't mean you shouldn't read one. In being an environmentalist, the dunes, the caves, the landscape of Saudi is there. So if as a tourist today you want to go, it is a beautiful place. The women, what we went through at that time, how we managed to overcome this day-to-day challenges, how the men also supported in a big way, how friendships were formed, lifelong friendships. I learned to cook very well, because we used to treat each other. There were hardly any vegetarian restaurants. There were no cinemas, right? We went to Bahrain, from the eastern province, to watch movies. So there were no cinemas. The books were all censored when they came in. So many such things which people don't understand. And why did I write the book? Sandy asked me just now. Why? Not only to document that, but after coming to India, I was talking to a lot of CEOs, and when they asked me, Sandhya, what do you do? How can you contribute to our company? I started explaining my journey, starting with the entrepreneurship journey in Saudi. And one of the CEOs just told me, yeah, I've lived and seen Dubai. So what they were doing is a liberal Dubai was being compared with the restricted Saudi. They thought it was the same. They've never been there. So that's when I felt, uh, as a tribute to a lot of us who went through the hardships of the 90s Saudi, this needed to be documented. So thank you, Sandy, for highlighting that and helping me share. It's a exercise in healing as well, I should say, because there was a lot of fear. And the TEDx talk that I had given about 10 years ago was also on this, how we should express fears, we should meet fears head on, and not allow them to dictate the rest of our life. So I think that is the message there.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing that because I'm sure it must be an amazing book. And when I read it, I am going to walk in your shoes.
uh, in a walk in our shoes, me and
Okay.
at least another 20 friends. Yeah, we all went through it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure it must have been, yes, a challenging time. Perhaps when you were living through it, it must have felt sometimes very restrictive. But if I know you and anything about you, the moment a restriction comes up, there's Sandhya. Okay, bring it on. I can do. I can make sure I'll make something great out of it. And I think that's one of the qualities that makes you who you are. So I would like, when we discussed this webinar, you had talked about, and you mentioned it right now, insurmountable barriers. So you said no insurmountable barriers. So can you just give us a bit of an idea why you say that? And because the reason I want you to share that is because a lot of people who are going through various challenges think this is the end, whether it's a financial challenge, whether a business failing, relationships failing, not good health, whatever it is. So, what would you say to them?
Let me put on my self healer training hat, okay, for this particular thing. Uh, Zindagi mein, it is said in Hindi that life, if it was without challenges, would be like a straight line. That means we'd be dead. There are ups and downs on a day to day basis. Just because we look cheerful on social media most of the time, we don't discuss problems, it doesn't mean we don't have problems. Usually, problems are appearing in people's lives. Along with that, there is an energy given to you secretly by the divine to invoke it to face that challenge. Now, this is a belief. You can say, Sandhya, you're just saying because you are able to do it. No, this is a fact. It depends on a lot of the way you respond to the situation. So you can react to it. And I'm not saying that you have to give enough time for healing. Every situation that comes into, be it like Sandy just mentioned, it could be death in the family, it could be job loss, it could be money loss, it could be a friendship loss, it could be a betrayal. Any of these challenges every human being faces at least three times in their life, which is a big jolt. How we respond to that and how we bounce back from that, it's like a blow, right? You get it on your head, so you go down, but you have to dust yourself and get up. So if when we are little, our parents come rushing if we have fallen. Some parents don't rush, they just wait for you to get up, dust yourself, cry a little, and move on. You would see some children do that, right? That is exactly what we have to continue to do. And every time I face any of these challenges, or I see somebody sharing that with me, they say some of us need a lot more time to heal. So I'll tell you about one Ho'oponopono technique, which helps us to self heal. For Sandy and the viewers here, uh, please practice this, and you'll recognize it is again about taking responsibility for that moment. Okay, there is nobody out there to blame. So there are four statements that you can look in the mirror and tell yourself: I love you, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry. I'll repeat: I love you, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry. These are four statements of love, of forgiveness, for seeking for forgiveness from oneself for whatever happened around us. Okay, we don't know the entire mechanics of how the divine operates. And I really feel that if we again take responsibility, and I'll tie it back to the first question that Sandy asked, when we said for the planet, why are we handling it that way? We said we should take responsibility for all the electronics, we should take responsibility for our health, because it is about us. It is only about us. So there are no insurmountable barriers as long as we take responsibility for that moment. So I think that is a very powerful way to live, and the power is ours. Don't blame anybody and give that power away. We have it in us to do. And more people are recognizing that the consciousness is shifting now. Thanks. We can share this, right? Maybe many years ago, there was no internet, there was no WhatsApp, and we didn't know how to share it. But today we can. So heal fast, respond, and bounce back.
Thank you very much, Sandhya. That was absolutely lovely and a great way to end the webinar. Some very important pointers, not just words, but something. If we really pay attention to them, we can bring about an amazing transformation in the way we lead our lives. and BHAPPY, happy. That's what you
Yes.
and I are. I think whenever we've met, we're always bubbling with energy, always doing something that makes us happy, picking ourselves up when the day has not been so good, when our energy levels are low. And I see we have a lady called Jennifer Randive who's just repeated what you said. She's re-emphasizing. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. So on that wonderful note, Sandhya, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully, we will meet up in the new year. And yes, I will buy your book. And I will
Yes.
also
Thank
critique
you.
your book. All right.
Please,
Thank you very
please
much,
do
my
that.
dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sandy, for having you on Celestia. May all the celestial beings make sure your show is watched again and again by a lot of people.
Thank you, my love. God bless. So there you have it. Some wonderful pointers from a lady who is absolutely an amazing individual, an amazing friend, always helpful, always ready to cooperate, always ready to share. So if we could bring in just a couple of those things into our lives, it would make it so much easier. So she said something that I think we all need to pay attention to. It's respond, not react, because we react all the time. So we need to be a little cautious when somebody says something to us, to respond and not to react. And the other thing is about adjusting and adapting, right? Not everything is going to come our way, not everything is going to be as we imagined it. So, how do we continue? Do we complain? Do we find fault? Or do we say, okay, let's just look, take a step back, just look again? How can we adapt to this? How could we adjust to this? Because you know what? We have to move forward. We have no choice, right? And so, what she also mentioned was movement is the key. So, when we're talking about how is our mind working, how are we moving with the times, are we moving and doing things the way that we can move forward, we can create something, we can do something, not just sitting there and say, oh no, it can't be done. That's gone. Let's get into action. Let's relax. Let's enjoy. Let's rejuvenate. Because, 2024 is going to be such an amazing year. And all the things that we did in 2023, yes, please remember only the positive stuff, no negative stuff. Throw that out. It doesn't need to be recycled, it just needs to be flushed down, right? And so, on that, and talking about recycling, think carefully what you do with your electronics. Think carefully what with you do with all those gadgets in the house. Do they need to be reused? Can they be reused? Can you keep them and use them for a little while longer? And when you have to get rid of them, please make the effort to find out how you can do this in the most responsible way. Because let's face it, each one of us is responsible for our planet. And when we all come together, we will be able to protect it not only for ourselves, but for the future generations. On that lovely note, thank you very much for watching, and God bless to all of you. Take care.